Hello everyone, today I'm going to solo Botanica on my level 80 Retribution Paladin. For those of you wondering if this is possible as a Protection Paladin or any other classes, then yeah, this is definitely possible. And I've also made a guide for this dungeon as a Protection Paladin. So as for example, a Protection Warrior, a Death Knight, or maybe even a Rogue or a Druid, well then this is also possible, and maybe even as a Fire Mage. Alright, so when I do the first pull right here, I always make sure to use my cooldowns. The reason for this is because by the time that I need these once again, well then there will no longer be a cooldown on my wings or trinket. You might also notice a marked target with a skull. The reason for this is because these menders can heal the other targets. So what I usually do is to prioritize killing these as fast as possible to reduce the length of the fight. In this room you will also be fighting the Tempest Forge Peacekeeper. If you struggle with the dungeon, or if you feel like there's a lot of damage, then I would prioritize killing these as they usually do more damage compared to the other enemies. If you have herbalism when you do the dungeon, you can also increase the gold that you make, simply because there's different herbs you can loot in here. On top of this, you can also convert all the netherweave cloth into bandages. I usually do this myself whenever I need to take a break. So when I come back, I've converted all the cloth into bandages and I can now winter this. Of course, if the netherweave cloth is more expensive, then you could spend time posting this on the auction house. One reason why I like this dungeon so much is because a lot of these enemies are rather easy to kill, and there isn't really many mechanics you have to be aware of, so not a lot of stuns, silences and other things. Another nice feature about the dungeon is that you can level up your character in here. I did this myself and soloed the dungeon when I was level 70. I spent around 3 hours every single level, and back then I also made around 350 gold an hour, so I leveled my character and I even got gold at the same time. Alright, so right here we're also ready for the first boss fight. I would recommend you to skip the fight, simply because the loot table is so trash. A lot of the blue items that can drop from the boss winters for around 1 to 2 gold. So all the time you spend fighting this is simply not worth it compared to the gold that you get. Instead, I would just recommend you to kill these trash monsters and move on. Overall, this should generate you more gold compared to fighting the first boss. Right here, it might seem tempting to pull everything in the room. This can be a bad idea, as they do a lot of damage and also apply different damage over time abilities. So it might be better to just take it a bit slow right here and kill a few enemies at a time. The moment you get used to the damage, and if you have decent gear, well then you can also pull way more enemies. If you're curious about my gear, then you can always see this at the end of the video, where I also show you the talent tree, glyphs, how you can easily render and repair, and the total gold that I made. In a moment, we will also be at the location where we can fight the second boss. This I always make sure to do, as most of the items render for anywhere between 4 to 8 gold. However, there's 2 blue items that renders for less than 2 gold from the loot table, so of course sometimes you might be unlucky, but on average it should generate you more gold every single hour by killing this boss. When you're fighting this boss, there's only one thing you need to be aware of. At some point it will spawn quite a few ads, and when it does this, it's also immune to all damage and it will cast Tranquility at the same time. So all you need to do is simply just to kill the ads, and then you're once again able to damage the boss, and that's the fight. In a moment you will be fighting some new enemies in the next room. These enemies will be demons, so I highly recommend you to use your Holy Breath to stun these targets, but also to do additional damage. There's one thing you need to be aware of when you're fighting these demons. They will try to stun you with a kidney shot, but you can easily get out of this by casting your freedom. If you have followed my talent tree that I'll show you later in the video, then you can break out of any stun by using your freedom. In this room, we can also fight the third boss of the dungeon, and this I always make sure to do. There's a high chance that you get a rare item that renders for quite a bit, even a weapon for around 8 gold. I'm going to add in some music for the next couple of minutes, and at the final boss, I'll once again do a bit of voiceover. Alright, so right here you're also ready for the final boss. Once in a while it will stun you, so make sure to use your freedom to break out of the stun. At some point it will also spawn a lot of ads, and these you need to make sure you kill. If you don't kill them, then they will heal the boss for quite a bit. But yeah, that's basically the whole mechanic of the fight. There's a high chance that the boss will drop different weapons, and some of these render for anywhere between 8 to around 10 gold each. And sometimes you might even be lucky enough to get 2 of them. Another reason why I like this dungeon is because by the time you have finished the dungeon, you can exit right next to. And the moment you exit the dungeon, you can also reset and start a new one. So you don't have to spend a lot of time exiting the dungeon or getting back to the entrance. Another big reason for why I like this dungeon is because it's easy for me to render and repair. You can do this right next to the dungeon, and you have to spend around 1 minute to do this. To save a bit of time, you could always spawn a repair bot as an engineer where you can render and repair. But these bots usually cost anywhere between 10 to 20 gold each, so it's probably not going to be worth it. Of course, if you can get them cheaper, then it might be worth it, as I usually spend around 2 minutes rendering, repairing and going back to the dungeon. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, then you can always convert your cloth into bandages to make even more gold. But don't spend time doing this if you have time to farm. Only do this whenever you need to FK. For those of you curious about the gear that I use, my talents and glyphs, then I will show you this right now. And if you're mainly interested in Wrath of the Lich King videos, for example other gold making videos, then I would highly recommend you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Because anytime soon I'm gonna continue to release more of these videos. But yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Peace.